Okay, so we are recording now. Are we ready to go?
Almost.
Okay.
So yeah, he just needs to log in, share it. Fine. If he shows up in attendees, you have to promote him to.
Okay. So you need a.
Is it starting? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yay.
And I would like to call a meeting to order, and the first item of business is to do a roll call. So if you could announce your presence, starting with you, Corey.
Corey is here.
Luke Harper Prince is here.
And Bill Kerner is here, and we have Joy Porter. Joy,
Joy Porter on Zoom.
very good. And Carl is excused. He's on a business trip. And a former member, Bob, got a job out of the city and is resigned from the board. So we need some new members. So the first item of business is to approve the agenda. Has everybody looked at the agenda?
Yes,
Yes,
Yes, I've looked at the agenda.
okay.
I had a comment. We have a approval of minutes from February, but those weren't in the packet. And we had a meeting in July. We don't have minutes from that. And so we've got a couple of, I think there's a total of 4 prior meetings that we haven't officially approved our minutes. And I'm wondering if we want to address that in the agenda now, or wait until we come to that, or what we would like to
Well,
do.
Let me suggest that we defer the approval of the 2 missing recent meetings. And go back and look at the ones in the previous year. I understand there's 2 also that haven't been approved. Is that your
There's
take on it, Corey?
There's a total of 4 sets of minutes that need to
Right.
be approved, and none of them are in the packet. So I'm
Right.
going to suggest that we take off approval of minutes from the agenda. And
Well,
then,
I would suggest that we just defer consideration of those at this point in time with the notation that we don't have those minutes in front of us and we can't really pass on them at this time.
is that procedurally okay? Does that work for you, Roy, or?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. We're basically going to defer making that, and then we'll bring it at the next meeting.
Right.
So at the next meeting, we'll have 5 sets of minutes that we're going to
Correct.
approve, including
That's
these.
And,
Okay.
and what I'll do, Corey, is I'll have Juan contact you. We'll just make sure we get the minutes, because I know you've sent corrections. And so I'll have Juan connect with you, make sure we connect with all those minutes that are missing, and we'll have those ready for the next meeting.
Sounds great. So that's the only agenda item I would I guess I don't need to modify the agenda. So then I will move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I second the approval of the agenda.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is approved. And I want to go back, and we do have a couple of guests. And we come to the public comment area, and our guests, if you just want to identify yourselves.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we're not quite there yet. We have to talk about approval of minutes first, which we're going to defer. And then we have public comment.
Well, we've just deferred all those minutes. Do you want to make a motion to that effect, Corey?
I'd like to move that we defer the approval of the minutes until our next meeting, and at the next meeting, we will seek to approve 5 sets of minutes.
I second that. And
All
then
in
I,
favor, please say aye.
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 Okay,
Ok-
thank you.
Okay, continuing on, we have 2 guests tonight. Identify yourselves for us. Yeah, come on up. Sorry to put you on the spot. But
That's
it's
okay.
always good to have people come.
Natalie Johnson, I'm council liaison.
Thank you, Natalie.
Susan Presti, 114 Cave Avenue, candidate for city council at large.
Thank you. And I gather you don't have any comments at this time. Okay. Presentations. Item 2. The map board PowerPoint presentation on mobility and parking. And that's up on the screen. So take it away, Roy, or Juan.
Yeah, good evening. So the purpose of this meeting is to work collectively so that we can work together come up with ideas to present this to council in January. So I put this PowerPoint together so that we can come up with ideas. We'll go slide by slide. No, because it was booked. It was booked November and December, so we will not have our next meeting until January. So I put this PowerPoint together. This is just a draft. We're gonna go slide by slide to see what thoughts you have. I'll note these notations down, and then what I'll do once we have a complete document, I'll enhance it, put pictures on it, and then we'll revisit it in our next meeting so that before we turn it into so starting with the first slide, this is a vision. Go back. Yeah, this is our vision statement. Our community has a safe multimodal transportation network that balances the needs of the residents, visitors, and businesses, complementing our natural environment and cultural history.
Anybody
So-
have any comments on the vision statement? I think
I-
it's pretty good.
So I think we should just run through the whole thing as you're going to present it as if this is the first time us seeing it. And then we can go back slide by slide and make any adjustments, but I don't want to throw off track your presentation of what we
Yeah,
do.
that's a
Thank
good
you.
suggestion.
Sure, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
That'll
let's
make
do
it move a lot quicker. So these were our mobility and parking 2023 goals. We're continuing to develop the El Paso mobility recommendations. Expand the use of data resources for future decisions, establish a parking enterprise fund, financial line item for MAP and future city budgets for implementing MAP goals. Implement an onboarding process for prospective new MAP members. Continue support of the traffic calming board and plan for implementation of micromobility going citywide. Next slide. These were a few of our accomplishments that we wanted to highlight. Continue developing the El Paso mobility recommendations. And that was to keep the current street diet in place and add mobility signage on Cock Place, to connect the Lover's Lane to Cannon, and review next year after the Hiawatha project makes decisions on the effect on El Paso. We also wanted to expand the use of data resources for future decisions. Currently, we're using the SmartKey application that's being utilized for all of our lots, including the economy and the bar lot. We're looking at a new LPR system that's going to be fixed, that's currently installed in cars, but we also want to use it for to have it fixed on our surface lots so that we can use our parking enforcement officers in residential areas. And then programs such as SmartKey, T2, Honk Mobile, and Parking Logics have supported this decision making for mitigating congestion and creating increased turnover, providing evidence of program success with our progressive rates. We also want to establish goal 3 was to establish a market and enterprise fund financial item for the MAP and future city budgets for implementation of MAP goals. They'll now be supported with funds from the new parking enterprise fund moving forward. Goal 4, implementing an onboarding process for prospective new MAP members. So we talked about this. This was a goal that we had, but right now we're in the beginning stages of setting that up for the process and developing a task force. The next one is for the implementation of traffic calming board by the TMMP City Task Force. The program will continue to support city staff and members of MAP. Multiple projects supporting initiatives by the traffic calming board, such as curb paintings, restriping signage, additional crosswalks, and tracking speed. Goal 6, plan for implementation of use of micromobility citywide. That's adding additional parking Pike Ride hubs approved and installed. Ongoing meetings with Pike Ride and Pac-Man, EPAC vouchers pending approval from the city council to add additional bike racks, doing inventory and having an interactive map with all the bike locations created. We're also creating a new tram division within the mobility and parking department that will serve residents and visitors with 2 purchased EV trams. On the streetlight program, that's PPRTA helps with the congestion management and is used to monitor the congestion with traffic flows coordinated with public works and pedestrian upgrades. Next slide. And these are the mobility and parking goals for 2024. Beginning at the top, reviewing and analyze the walkable city to generate solutions for Manitou Springs in preparation for collaboration with the strategic planning consultant. Goal 2 is to draft and finalize bikeability master plan to begin implementation of systems and networks to support the use of micromobility citywide. The next was to continue to support traffic calming board initiatives with ongoing curb painting, restriping signage, additional crosswalks, speeding tracking. Goal 4 is to continue to use programs and explore additional options to support data-driven decision-making for mobility, parking, and micromobility. Goal 5 is the installation of fixed license plate recognition systems for all surface lots to support efficient enforcement, citation audits, loss capture, resulting in increased revenue, implementing of digital parking permits to support residential parking compliance with LPR patrol vehicles. Goal 6 is a full-time tram division for residents and tourists. This is a 2024 budget request for Walkable City. We have a 50,000, and that's under our transportation mobility master plan. And these are our project ideas to review and analyze for Walkable City. We have several steps. Putting cars in their place, that would be in January. Mix the uses in January. The uses, getting the parking right, let transit work, protect the pedestrian, walk-on bikes, shape the spaces, plant trees, make friendly and unique faces, pick the winners, work on the PowerPoint of ideas for council, present to council. And then on the other side, we have the bikeability master plan that we're also working on. We start with the vision, what's the rationale behind that, network development and connectivity, amenities and facilities, communication and engagement, public and private partnerships.
Cool. That looks good so far. My comments.
Need council's direction on moving forward with the presentation plan and give us an alternative direction for 2024. That is it. So Walkable City is so one of the most popular books in the country by Jeff Speck. Most people think that it's a book just. It's not about not bringing cars into a city, but how to mitigate and how to beautify the city to, when you put walking and bikeability, the first thing you need to look at is what attracts people who are coming in as tourists, what appeals to them. And what does it take? Does it take certain streets to block off so that we can possibly make a biking lane? Do we add more trees? What can we do to add more, to make the seal appeal to the people who are coming into the city?
Yeah, so just real quick, I want to say it's tourist, but it's residents and also businesses, so the
Correct.
idea is we're doing this for all those levels. And residents being at the top of that list with businesses next, as a partner with residents, and tourists being that last tier that we work on.
Correct.
Wait, I've got a question. Is there a reason it's in that order?
I don't know, business and residents are at that top, and tourists, we have to take care of our residents in town and the businesses, because they're the ones, if anything, allow or bring in the tourists, and will spend the money to make it better for tourists. So I think we need to really focus on residents who live here on a day-to-day basis, focus on businesses that are bringing in the tourists and folks. And then tourists are important for our economy. But we never can forget the residents and the businesses running their businesses out here.
I
Can I?
simply challenge the ideology of putting one above them, and want us all to play devil's advocate within our own arguments, right? When you're talking to yourself about ideas, to really try to think through the processes, or excuse me, the experience of all the stakeholders, as if you were the one that needs to be advocated for the most. So as we think through like who's representing which one of those stakeholders, it really needs to be thought through on all of those levels equally.
And I would just, if I could add something, if you look at all the recent surveys and you look at all the input from the residents, I think it's appropriate for residents to be first. It's not really, I think when people read it, they realize that all four have an important part. And I don't think we have to worry about the order of events.
I agree, Joy. It's not important to focus on the order. Thanks for my feedback on that, by the way.
And may I mention something else?
Yes, go ahead.
What I wanted to say is, I've read the book and looked at it and analyzed it. And what I'm picking up is this is the book from 2012. He has another book out for 2018, which he says, Spector says you need, or Specs says you need to read, which has more actions in it. And he also has 100-page, I think it's 100 pages, while he's talking about the people that are left out in our larger cities due to different factors in our country. And so I would make the consideration that just to use this book and to do the chapters that way, rather than do it by themes, would be more productive to do it by themes. I think to do it chapter by chapter is more, it just sort of makes it more disjointed.
Okay, thoughts on that process?
So so the idea is to get everybody to read through the book together and talk about the chapters that we're reading and ideas that come up from each chapter. Is
Well, I think that's what it is, but
that or
generally.
general theme? I mean, I'm okay with that too. I mean, that seems awesome. I think that's awesome. Is that what the kind of general idea is? Because it sounds like the book's laid out really good.
Right. Not everything in the book applies to us because a lot of it's for big metropolitan cities.
Sure.
And a lot of them, but a lot of them are like small cities I can compare to what we currently have. So it's just identifying like what would work for this city.
That's awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah,
We
and
can
I
probably
chime
identify
in.
themes along
Yeah,
the way.
exactly right. And the themes are to help guide us, because we do need a little help on just to think about strategies for Manitou. And I think that can do that. And we should go in order. I think that's what you're saying, Joy, that we go in order. And that's how we presented that on the slides here. It was in that order, I think, of each theme. But of course, we can stick with the chapters within that theme
Correct.
Well,
as well.
I
Is
agree.
that what you're saying, Joy? So I understand you?
yeah, I think that, one, I think we should read the updated book, the 2018 book. Because I just, a lot has changed since 2012, and Speck did say in his paper that a lot has changed. And so I think we can do it either way, by themes or by chapters, but it just seems like, I'm
Yeah,
not sure it'll be as productive, but
I
I
agree.
certainly will go along with the group. I'm concerned about also $50,000 to do a book study. I'm not sure.
Well, there
that's-
was, yeah, so let me, so I'll talk on the first part first. I do think we do need the 2018 book. And we'll go look at getting those. And that way we have the updated, and some things have changed, some things haven't, but it is, I do have that updated book when it was available, so I do have it. So
Oh,
we just have
good.
to make sure we have the 218, and maybe some people got the 218 and some got
Well,
212.
So I wonder if we're talking about two different things, like this one I got is a 10th anniversary edition that has an update, like it's got a sizable update for 2022 at least.
That would be the one probably.
Like this
Yeah.
much of my book is the 10th anniversary update.
Hmm.
Joy, are you talking about a different title book?
No,
or is it
there's a
still
different
Walkable City?
title. It's called Walkable City Rules.
Okay, yes, that's actually a summary of that, and I do have the book.
Yeah, one's got it
Um,
right here.
And do you have that one as well?
That's what's one.
Okay, so we can get that book. That'd be good. That's a good one I looked at. The other side of the 50,000 was a suggestion by the city administrator that we consider having a consultant help guide us. So that's something we're talking about today too. Do we want a consultant to come in to talk about and help us guide through the walkable
I
city?
think Juan is our consultant.
Okay, and that's okay. That was a suggestion, so we.
Hey, Juan.
So one gets
Right.
50 grand.
Yeah, the reason for the consultant is that we want this project, we want this process to be very successful, and we felt that bringing in a consultant to guide us in those right steps to ensure that we're taking the right steps to make sure that everything we're doing is successful, that we can put it in place.
Well, there's the MP3 version that's an audio book. I'm
Right.
Not sure where that fits into this whole thing, but I started listening to that. And it seemed to be an update on the book that was previously handed out. I just like listening to it rather than
Sure.
reading all the words.
So is the, I guess we can vote on it. Do we want Juan to work through the walkable city with the group, and then we come up with our recommendations?
Well,
Or do we want to look for a consultant to help guide us as with that?
I would say that Juan has quite a lot of duties in our city as he, leads the transportation department and all the other things, mobility. I would assume that it might work better to have someone, if we can find someone that is competent in consulting, might be better because a consultant knows the order, and not that Juan doesn't, but it just seems like an added task to a staff member to me.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, this is Natalie. I'm wondering too, if there's like a third option to consider, which would be, how the Colorado Springs has had their city center series, where there could be the book piece, but then you would bring in that may just spend 3 days here, but could do the walkabout, could do a presentation to the community, could do a one-on-one with you all, and then take off, but then still have you all handle the book
We've got several
conversation.
options.
Yeah, I think that's that's a good option too, that we find, and it may be more than one if we get on a certain topic that we need some guidance. Maybe we just do that even with local experts and find someone who can come in and help us.
Yeah,
think
no,
that's
I like
actually-
that idea.
Well, there we go.
Well,
Yeah.
John Olson is a local expert. Chuck Marone from Minnesota is an expert that's come to
For
Colorado Springs.
$50,000, I'll be a local expert.
I guess that I like the idea. I like this book. Where I'm at is, does council want us to be doing this? Like
That, thank you. Can we?
I'm- sorry, what's that?
No, I said, thank you.
I'm trying to get my head around, you know, what does council want us to do and how does this board function? I mean, I think it's great, but if we're just taking a book and we're going to look at 2 chapters a month. And yeah, if there's
So-
$50,000 to spend, we should develop a budget and figure out our approach for that. But I'd like to know that it's something that is what our community and what council wants us to be doing.
So one of the, as we had the meetings last year, you know, is that this is a board that helps with strategy on developing mobility and parking goals and ideas. And so the book is just to help guide us in looking at all the different aspects of mobility and parking in our city and trying to come up with a presentation for council in September of suggestions. So for example, at one point, Carl, and I can't remember who else was involved with the El Paso Mobility Boulevard idea that was part of the TMMP. That may come again, and I would love to hear that, a brief review of that program. But as we go through this, there's a area that talks about mobility, and the idea is to take, maybe we decide we want to make El Paso a mobility boulevard. And what we need to do is present ideas to council for them to decide what they like or don't like from our ideas, to start seeing what it's going to cost for things. Because if we decide, for example, we want a roundabout out here, because roundabouts are great for bikes and according to some bicyclists, I know Carl's mentioned roundabouts several times. What is that going to cost us? And if is this board going to make a recommendation to council that we want to put a roundabout here, another roundabout over there, to help with Manitou Avenue's mobility? Do we want to focus on El Paso and make that a mobility boulevard? Do we need to widen it? Do we need to do what with that boulevard? So we need to come up with what is our strategy for mobility and parking in the city. And then once council agrees or disagrees with certain things, we come up with a plan, and then we got to find money and we got to find ways to move forward on things. So that's really was the goal here. Otherwise, I'm not sure what the board is doing with
So with
what are we
the-
here for.
With the proposed work through this books, would that lend ourselves useful towards that process?
That's the idea, that this is really a guide and gives
Yeah.
us ideas. But I want really this group to come up
A
with-
structured
yes,
way to
structured,
do it.
correct.
I'm an advocate for structure, and I think this is a hell of a way to do it.
And then we can present something for once to council. And I want Bill and whoever else from the board here to do the presentation with us and say, this is what we've come up with ideas for the city. And because until we have those ideas presented, we're just floundering here. We're not.
So
getting
can
anything done.
can I ask that the slide be changed to the 2024 goals? And as I just have, nothing in particular I wanted to point out other than just to have that in the background. Thank you. So as we work through this book together, I think it would be good to always have all of these 6 goals in the top of our mind as to what part and what chapter and what section these are at, right? And so if I'm thinking through this correctly, goal 1, that goal should have some kind of tie-in to every one of the chapters in one way or another. I mean, is that the thought with these goals? Are we kind of implementing each one of these along the way with these goals and those chapters top of mind? Is that how you see that
Correct.
process working?
Yeah, so if you go to the next slide, where it has I believe it's the next one. This one. So on this one, we do plan on putting themes, as Joy mentioned, right below every single topic, so that people can have a better understanding of what we're discussing, the expert studies that we're doing, and just taking that information that would apply
Gosh,
for.
That's awesome. I think that if we have just that structure
Mhm.
right now through the next 12 months, as we have hey, what do we do for 2024? That's cool,
Right.
right? And we can work together with you and get on the same page and let's say it is a one single project of El Paso Boulevard. We work through that it gives us structure,
Right.
right? I think that's what this board's been lacking, is just kind of structure of, hey, what's on the agenda, right? I mean, truthfully, it's been hard to even get things on or off, or, lacking of minutes. All that aside, this gives us a good vision of what we're gonna do in July of 24. I can tell you right now, because approximately what we're gonna be looking at. And I mean, if there's anything that I want to be able to do is go to council and say, hey, we're doing something, look, and here's some good things. Like this last year, we didn't meet for half the time, and that really
Right.
bums me out. But anyway, I'm on board with how this is going. I think it's a really good idea. Was that your idea, Juan, or with Roy?
Just collectively.
Yeah, cool. I like it, guys.
So let me, I'll add one more thing and then we can hear from everybody else, but you know, the Park and Recreation Board, I give them kudos because of their, you know, the Soda Springs plan. They have 3 phases, I believe. So there's a lot of projects, so I have to remember how many phases each one has. But they set that vision of what they wanted to see. And then they were able to, you know, they brought in consultants to help and, you know, design it. And now they're building. And so we have to follow that same idea. We got to think about what do we even want? And this group has to come up with those tough questions and bring it to council. Here's what we think could help with our congestion problem, our mobility improvements, and then see if they agree and have discussions. And then maybe we actually set a plan as, wow, we want to put in 3 roundabouts because that's what we all agree on. How much is that going to cost? And now how do we get the money? How long will it take through the Mobility and Parking Board to raise the money? And then we start getting projects done that can actually do something. And that's where then money comes into play. And I know that's been brought up by you, Bill, many times is the board has no funds. Well, we got to have a plan because even Park and Rec, they really couldn't do anything until they finally had a plan to bring to council. And we have no plan. So this is just a way to try to do a plan. I'm open to other suggestions, but this is a way maybe we could set this plan up and start talking about all the different mobility options and using some experts out there. And
So you're saying we have to develop a plan for council to then approve later on and pay for us because it's on our wish list? That's great. Like really, that's how it works, you guys. Like we have to work together to come up with good ideas, and having a structure of how to even think through those ideas is good. Right? I think that's how to do it. And I was telling Natalie, I think every council member should be involved in this process to the much as they want to. I mean, I'm one to say they should be here, you know, with us. So thank you both. Right. But truthfully, you know, come on, open table, join the conversation. I think it's a nice proposal to work through 2024.
Yeah, and I like working in phases. Right now, I'm also working on the bikeability master plan, and most studies in other states, they've been most successful doing it in phases. So that's one of the reasons we want to kind of follow every chapter and put our thoughts together collectively, and that way we could bring something very good in front of council.
Corey, I think.
Yeah, so I also like the idea of adding some structure, and I think there's a lot of good ideas in here. But I also noticed that we do have a plan. We had a proposal for Mobility Boulevard along El Paso that was presented here and had some really, you know, had some options and had some concise recommendations. I would like to see us move forward with that in parallel with doing this book study. It's really a kind of an urgent situation. We've got, you know, the comment came from Colorado Springs. They've developed a bike map, and they've said, Manitou, where do we show you connecting? Because we don't know, and we couldn't answer that question. And I think it's an urgent, I mean, I think we already know the answer. We'll read the book and it'll also confirm it, but we need to have a very good a safe bicycle way to get to connect in from Colorado Springs. And I'd like to see us move ahead with that, not wait until September next year. I'd like to see progress on that. And the other comment I wanted to make, and then I'll yield the floor. I love the idea of a bikeability master plan. That to me is something we might also be able to do in parallel with our book study. And I really think the expertise that we've got on our board could really lend a hand with that. So I don't know if it's been so long since we've had a meeting, I can't really remember. This is the first time I remember talking about coming up with a bikeability plan. I think that's something concrete we could be working on right now. Whereas I feel like the strategy around, like we got this good structure, I like the strategy of coming up with some bigger goals, but there are two things right in front of us that we really could get
Well,
some traction on.
I would say
immediately.
that those things are right in front of council. Just because council doesn't listen to us and take action and show up to our meetings doesn't mean that we're not doing our job.
Well, wait a
Right.
minute, Luke, the
And
way.
sorry to
the
interrupt,
boards-
Bill. I did see your hand up. I just
Yeah.
had to say that we're
Um,
doing
Hold
things.
on.
We're doing a damn good job at it too,
Oh, Just
if
go
we
ahead.
meet.
finish your, are you done?
Joy's.
Joy? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that's unfair to say about our council. Our council has liaisons. And those liaisons come to our meetings. That's why we have Natalie here. It's not a matter of they don't want to come or they're not interested or why don't they come? It's nothing to do with that. And I don't think that kind of negativity helps us move forward. So
I
it's
understand.
my statement. I don't like hearing that because it's not productive. It's how our boards and commissions work. I've been on this committee for 7 years. And boards and commissions operate a certain way, and you can't expect our council, who also have private lives, to be able to do every single board meeting. It's not a point, it's taking a snide remark in my estimation. And the other thing about El Paso, not all of us are in agreement that it can become a bike lane or a bike mobility, because there's a lot of us who live off of El Paso and need ability to get in and out. So those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to comment as well. Corey, on your thoughts, we have examined the Mobility Boulevard extensively. And I agree, it's sort of, we need to do something with it. And let me finish. I think it can be integrated into this structure that we're laying out. And because we need an integrated solution that includes walkability, bikes, cars, the whole 9 yards. We need to address the big picture and make it all work together. It's sort of like a set of chimes or something. Every chime has a function, but the music that it produces is wonderful if you do it right. And so that's sort of the approach I like, and I think the city is going that way. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, just, I want to clarify maybe what I'm understanding. The idea is during this year, we stop doing everything else that we already kind of have. You know, when it comes to the bike connection, I do recall that conversation with Colorado Springs when I found out we weren't connected. I saw the maps. They sent us maps. And I said, whoa, wait, how come it stops right at the border of Manitou? So I reached out to that person in charge and they said, well, they're actually going to be resigning and moving on. So they'll have to get with me later. And then it didn't happen. So at that point, nothing went further with that mapping, but we were on track trying to say that it didn't make sense to have that connection. But I think some things can still move along. Like we don't have to put everything on hold. There are things that are low hanging fruit that have a big impact, like having the maps done. So what we just need to do is the ideas, Corey, that you bring to us. We can get those connections going even now at the same time. I think that's something we have to do and not wait for anything else, because that's going to be part of this anyway. And we have to make those connections happen. This is just for some of the bigger ideas, bigger things. And I know that El Paso actually had mixed reviews on, should it be a mobility boulevard and how would that look without impacting the residents of the neighborhood? So that thing kind of had to stalled out at this point, but now we bring it back. It's a bigger deal. But I think some of the others, and I say smaller, but they actually will have big impacts for bicyclists to know how they can travel in Manitou. I still say we work on those starting tomorrow and we keep pushing on those things that we can do today that are just kind of that we maybe need to know some of those items. So someone like you, an expert, and people that you know can help us with some of those connections. I think we just move on those right away. But then this is really about the bigger picture and how everything connects. And what else are we thinking of that we can really make an impact? So I hope that explains that we weren't going to put everything else aside and wait just for the end of the year.
I think that helps. So maybe what I'd suggest then is maybe could we put some really specific goals around, okay, so you know, we did a bunch of work on El Paso and there was a proposal, but we didn't really take it anywhere. We didn't have a community input session. And so you know what, we need to hear that. We need to hear that community feedback. And eventually we need to get to a point where we can go to council and say, look, this is what we think should be our bike route and our bike connection into Colorado Springs. Cause right now we don't know, we still can't answer the question, right?
Right.
So can we put a specific goal, like by June, can we have that connection that, the bike connection from Manitou to Colorado Springs identified in and move towards getting it on a map? I mean, you're right. The person in Colorado Springs has resigned. The new person I think is hiring actually is starting this week.
Yeah, so my question to you is, do you know if we can, like when's deadlines, things we don't know? Do you know if we can do it by June? We'd have to do some research and see what's possible, because I don't think the maps are probably once a year?
Well, let's set a
Is that just
target.
an example?
Let's set a target for us.
Okay.
About us being ready to identify what the route is, go through whatever community engagement process is appropriate so that we can implement something and do whatever we need to do. If we need to make changes to the streetscape to make changes, or, you know, I don't know where it is yet. El Paso is one option. But let's make it our goal to internally have that figured out. And I don't know, I threw out June just because I threw it out, you know.
I didn't know if that was the date.
What's realistic?
Well, I think it's driven by how long does it take to understand, first of all, what the possibilities are, and then working with Colorado Springs to come up with something that's an agreeable solution with not only us, but with them. And that needs to go through a public process, as you suggested. And I think yes, I would.
So-
agree with that.
So does the mapping program from Colorado Springs require certain street requirements, or will they just allow us to say, this is where we'd like to send bikes?
And with that, I would say we wouldn't want to, in good faith, just send bikes without doing our due diligence to make sure safety is of utmost priority.
Yeah, we want to figure out what is the safe route that we propose, make it as safe as it can be. And maybe there are some long-term things that we'll put for future improvements, but it would be, you know, signage and indicating, hey, this is the way. And whenever they print their maps, I mean, I'm not actually worried about their maps. What I really want is to know that there is an identified safe bike route.
Well, we've already got one at least, Midland Trail, that I've used in the past for years. I don't know. I'm probably more of I'm not a gonzo, get out on the street kind of guy, so I go a little slower. But
Well, let me put it another way. We
okay,
put a whole lot of work with a subcommittee to come up with some recommendations. And the statement was that it's stalled out. Okay, well, so why? What happened? Well, there's some feedback. Well, is that formalized? I mean, can we get that out in front of the public and really get like, we do want to do this or we don't want to do this, and here's why? Can we take that work and move it through the process? Because what I'm kind of hearing is, you know, we generated it. I don't think it ever made it to council. Right?
No, it did not. And I honestly don't know if this group approved it to move it forward.
yeah, we really dropped the ball. by not-
So I'm not going to move
further
anything
action.
until this group says we support it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the first thing council asks me.
And that
Absolutely agree.
was somewhat
And-
controversial.
And I believe there's got to be some kind of public engagement process, but we just sort of like brought it here and talked about it and then forgot it. I'd like to get that back on.
Well, let's get it out of the, wherever it is.
Dust it
and
off.
Lay it out.
If I can say something. You know, I don't know what the plan was, and I'm on this group. And often on this group, when we vote, if one person votes against something, it still goes to council without any opposition to what we're approving. So I would want to for sure have a way to those who are opposed to certain parts of the bikeability plan, have a chance to express their views. And then the other thing is, you know, we have two long areas. We have Manitou Avenue and we have El Paso. And I'm very willing to try to figure out safe bike routes, but we can't shut down the roads. And we can't often make them through gates, and there's a whole lot of issues that have to be dealt with. And it's a bigger picture. It's not just, make a map where bikes can go. Bikes now go on El Paso. And, occasionally you'll see them going down Manitou Avenue, but I see them on El Paso all the time, not stopping at stop signs anymore, though. So, I don't know. I think it's unfair to say it was dropped and just forgotten. I think it was, the community output is there's a whole lot of people that live along El Paso that don't want it, so they don't have access for bikes. And so that's where, if you look at Speck's book, he talks about compromise. And, I think those are things we have to look at. It's not just about our bikes, it's about mobility. And I think we have to be careful that we don't, get so involved in one aspect of it that we forget the rest. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's go to any comments on the PowerPoint that people have.
Yeah, so keep in mind that in January, I guess, or February, we're gonna be presenting this to council for the goals for the year. Last year, they'd like to see improvement this year on our presentation. So really what we need to know is, what do you think of this one? What do we need to change? What would you like as a group for us to add? I know Corey, you had some suggestions on some more
Did they look
detail
at
on
the-
some things. That's what we need to know, so that we basically, Bill presents this or decides as the chair who's going to present this, and then staff supports and sits there as well with support. So.
I did have one specific comment. If we could go to the slide with the goals for 2024. Yep, and maybe conceptually, maybe we want to draw a distinction between goals for the department and goals for this board. I look at goal number 5, the installation of the fixed license plate recognition. Seems like a great idea. To me, that's 100% staff and isn't a goal for the board. And is there a function? What do you guys need to take to council? Do you want to show department goals and our board goals? If right now they're a little bit mixed, and I think that's confusing for me, but I'm assuming that like this board not going to be very involved with, installing a computer technology.
That's a really good question, Corey. That's a good one. I think that this is the mobility and parking board goals. And maybe a goal is to support staff and their goals, but you're right. Maybe that is, or we separate them as department goals, but they're really operational type things that we're doing, and we're putting in equipment that we need.
Well,
So-
goal 1's not operational,
No,
right?
Nope.
So that one fits really well.
yes,
Goal 5 is, I think, 100% not this board.
yeah, I agree.
And what's meant by goal 6, full-time tram division?
We're gonna set up our tram drivers, because we're gonna be getting trams at the end of the year, and then hopefully have them running by March or April of next year. So we'll have the trams running to get people who parking outside areas get into town and out of Hiawatha.
So that's staff too. I don't think there's a role
Well-
for this board in that.
Jeff, Jeff,
Let
Bill,
me-
if I can make a comment.
Let me say a few words on that comment. Cory.
Okay,
But-
then I'd like to also.
Sure. The tram stuff, I think, is something we need to look at. And we need to look at it from the point of view, what streets does the tram go on? Where does it go? We have a fixed amount of people, and we need to understand that aspect of it. And I think that that's something this board at least should have a say on it, or have some expertise to be able to say, okay, we need to use such and such street or whatever, and pick up some such and such place. Maybe we don't get into that detail. We look at what staff presents and we react to it. But I agree with you on number 5, that is really just a staff function. And that's a good point that you've made, Corey.
So So I agree. So let's switch that to route discussion for the trams. And actually in February in the book, they talk about transit. So that then we can make that our focus because we have to have some ideas of routes and what this board thinks would be good routes, like you were saying, Bill. And so I totally agree. It's not about the tram drivers. That's our goal to have that set up, but it is about the routes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we'll switch that one. I like that. And then number 5, we'll pull out.
Yeah.
And that's just your goal, Juan. I'll hold you accountable. to that.
All right. Yeah, we could do it
Okay.
separately.
Perfect. What about
But-
the others?
If I could just say something about number 5.
Yes.
There might be a way to, one of the things that we should be doing as a group is we talk to residents, because often residents will ask us, what are we doing? And so there might be a way to have it so that we really understand how the license plate recognition will be and, how we're trying to work on congestion, because that will lessen it as it's more efficient for the automobiles to go into Hiawatha or wherever. And that will make it easier for residents. I don't know, I have mixed feelings about completely take it out. I think parts of it are still good for us to be able to say, hey, we looked at how we could support the residents and how the LPR actually helps. It's not just about patrol and compliance, but if the group wants to take it out, I'm okay with that.
Actually, I'm going to agree with you, Joy, and say, I think the specifics of like goal number 6, setting up the team, and goal number 5, implementing this technology, those are staff actions. But wouldn't it be great if we could add as an objective for our board would be to become fully fluent and knowledgeable about the activities of the department and to act as champions and ambassadors for what staff is doing, and also to be a liaison and respond to resident requests, not just on those things, but on everything that the department is doing.
So we just need to change the goal verbiage to state that
Yeah.
it's more of an education to the board on a new LPR system or something like that. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I would say for goal number 5, I would say the technology part, you put it in a column that is staff. And on the board part, it's like the board's goal is to become knowledgeable about and be able to answer questions about. I mean, then there's a whole bunch of things like, we should be the experts on the parking system probably, right? And so when our neighbors ask us, well, I can't figure out the parking system, we can say, well, guess what? We're experts and we can help to be an ambassador for that or any other thing that staff is doing. To me, that's a way that we can help provide a bridge to the citizens and be supportive of staff.
Okay, so we just need to change that verbiage.
Sure.
We'll work on that.
We can do that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I think
Yeah.
there's been enough discussion. We can come up.
Yeah, I think Corey and Joy, I think you guys hit that one perfectly, to just change the verbiage, but keep it.
So if we like
Yeah.
that direction, now let's talk about goal number 3. I don't think we've ever had any liaison between this board and this traffic calming board. Is that
have a
right?
Representative that goes to is part of the calming board.
But there's never been a reporting back and forth or any liaison. It just happens that that person is on both boards.
It does, but we have gotten some information. And the question really is, well, is it enough? And should we be more involved? in
So,
that?
well, keep in mind that the traffic calming board is initiated by residents. So if we don't get a request for their road to be looked at for calming purposes, we're not doing anything. We're happy if they're happy. So when we had one
And
request.
sorry, Roy, you mean staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Staff and then Carl is our representative from the map board. So we wait, so we have an online system. This is what the calming board is. So basically, a neighborhood can decide they have a problem with speeding.
Mhm.
They go online, they submit the calming request. We get it. We look at it, we decide, okay, we need to get the traffic calming board together and talk about how we can maybe do first steps in traffic calming. And then we do that. We try some things, which we did on Crystal Park Road. And then we go from there. But that's what that program is. That's what's been approved by council. That's in our code. So that's what that program is.
So what's our role as a map board in that?
Nothing.
Okay, so maybe,
Except
so maybe that
provide-
shouldn't be on our list.
Maybe it shouldn't be there because the only thing you guys are doing to go is to continue to supply one map member to be part of that board.
Well, I think it's information that's, as experts, if you want to put it that way, in transportation and parking. We need to know about these things because our neighbors are going to ask us about it and say, what are you doing about that?
So that can go into the ambassador idea.
To some extent.
Okay,
yeah.
so what if we did this? What if we said the continued, well, so there's a strong staff component of goal number 3.
Yes.
And I think there maybe should be a strong liaison component between MAP and the traffic calming board, which, so we have a member and that's Carl. Maybe we want to make that a regular agenda item where we're getting updates and there's a bit more info flow. And I'm going to blow your mind. What if we were able to do the same thing with the Metro District and improve our coordination with the Metro District? Because we've also got a member that sits on both of those boards. And could we, is there value? I mean, we heard about a lot of tension and stress around that. And it seems to me in our community, there's a way we could improve coordination with that board as well.
I like the idea, but Bill, it's, up to you as the chair. If we had a section for their, and I thought they did for the Metro Board,
They did.
right, the Metro District.
Yeah.
I like the idea though, that Carl presents anything that's come up in our meetings. Again, it's been very quiet lately, except the one that we did last year. And we're continuing on into this year because we had an appeals that goes to the city, that's internal. But basically, I think Carl can report back if we had any meetings about any street areas and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. And then the Metro Districts, I don't know if it's listed on our
It's-
agenda,
It's not.
and maybe we should list it. So it's every month we
at some
discuss it.
point In the past, we have listed and
Yes,
invited
I thought so.
them to come in and tell us what you're doing.
Yeah.
And especially around the garage.
But Rolf can just do that since he's
Rolf-
here, according like what Corey said. I
And
think that's
we've
great.
asked
Yes.
Rolf for at times in meetings, hey, tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
So we could make that a regular agenda.
Okay, so Juan, let's make that a regular agenda item. And then we'll add also just any reports from the traffic calming committee to the board on if we had any requests and stuff like that, if there were any solutions applied, I guess. Is that, Corey, is that what you're looking for? On
Yeah,
that
and
one?
I'm just brainstorming, this is just
Oh,
what
no, it's
occurred to me
great.
as I
No,
read this.
This is exactly what we need for this. So,
And then, I really see like goal 1, goal 2, and goal 4 really to me do fit in with what we're trying to do. And we're going to use this book to help us.
yes, okay.
The only improvement I would see, if we talk about SMART goals, right? Like, could we make them real specific, measurable, actionable,
You're right.
realistic, and have a time frame?
Yeah, we should do that. I believe that the city administrator will ask me those things anyway. So let's put that down that we need to do SMART goals.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on to other comments. Yeah,
I had 2 thoughts. One was, I'm wondering if you want to open up this opportunity to read Walkable City to the entire community, like to say, launch, hey, we're doing this, and hey, if you come to our meetings, you'll hear us talking about it, if you want to follow along. And then I also maybe add something along the lines of using this work to support Plan Manitou and the mobility efforts in that plan, because I think that's this coming year that we'll
Yes,
be doing that.
That's starting up too.
So it might be worth saying Plan Manitou as a connector to your work.
Right.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need to
our
connect.
vision is actually from Plan Manitou.
Mhm.
So that's a
Anyway,
good
those are
idea.
just
So
two things.
that should be a goal then, that we make sure we have connection with the Plan Manitou consultant at some point to talk about transportation. So let's add that. Thank you, Natalie. It's a great idea.
I'd like to add, as we look through making those goals, SMART goals, that, and maybe if you wouldn't mind going back to our vision and mission and just kind of our vision on things, making sure that our goals are directly tied in to the vision statement. Especially since that's pulled directly from Plan Manitou, I think it's helpful that it stays on the same page. So very similarly to how we're approaching each one of these projects, let's use El Paso Boulevard as an example. If we're using the book to kind of categorize and kind of break it down, we also ring that bell of how is this tied into this vision statement right here?
Well, and that brings up, why don't we include walkability as part of our vision?
Because I don't want to change the vision statement at this time.
Yeah,
Yes,
we did.
last year, and it was a whole thing.
Well, I think walkability is certainly something that we're doing. It,
Yep, I'm sure.
well,
and
you can look at it that way, but I don't know whether everybody does.
That's
So
the,
I
one
just-
of the
let
definitions
me
of
float that
multimodal.
idea. You're not agreeing.
Do,
Yeah, thank you.
well, let me,
It's fine.
let-
That's fine.
let me ask this question. Do we want to put in parentheses after multimodal that it's walking, biking?
The definition
The
of
definition
multimodal.
Kind of in there so people understand it and that we're not changing it. We're just adding the
We're adding-
definition.
We're adding additional information
it's
to
the-
make it more
Precise.
readable.
Is that, because that's not changing anything, just adding the definition in the parentheses after the.
I don't want to do that. I think multimodal is pretty self-explanatory because then it just waters it down. I think this is a great vision statement. I see where you're going, I really do, but I mean, then we got to bring in horses, right?
I would just say that it is very confusing. Most people don't know what multimodal is. They just don't. They have no idea. They just think it's a catchword. So I think putting something so people understand it will make it clearer.
I would agree with that.
I'm not comfortable making changes to our vision statement without putting that as an agenda item. That's a big deal to make changes.
Well, we don't have to make a change. We can put it on the agenda for next month. If that's a fair assessment. I think we have different opinions on this and I think we ought to.
Yeah, we could
At
add it
least-
to
at
the
least ask the
January
question.
meeting. Since we don't have to submit to or
Meeting.
present to council. To talk about that then.
Okay.
Because walking is a mode.
Or even at the end of the vision statement, you could put separate from the statement, the definition of multimodal. Again, this is just for the presentation. We're not gonna have it anywhere else, just for the presentation, if there's any questions from people looking at it, I suppose. But we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's
on the
okay.
agenda.
Sure. So that'll be an agenda item to discuss that.
Okay, other comments on the PowerPoint?
One, maybe you can kind of ring that bell for us and kind of go back through wherever you think we left off, because each time we kind of dive down a little rabbit hole, which is fine, but where would you like to see us go with this PowerPoint next? Where do you think we should touch base?
Where would I like?
What do you think is next that we should talk about with the PowerPoint?
Oh, I think it's just following, where it talks about the walkability, in stages and then also the bikeability, master plan. But under each one of them, just define actually like what's under every, what we're discussing
Yeah.
per quarter
You're gonna get a question on S marking.
on,
S marking?
yes,
Define it,
Smarting,
marking.
right.
that and the traffic light is a software program. So some people think it's a traffic light that's connected to traffic lights. It's not. So we probably do need to put under behind traffic light, a definite software program. And then for smarting software program
Okay.
might be good. Huh?
Yeah,
I like that.
because people are gonna ask, what the heck is that?
And we'll throw in some pictures into the slides too, to make it look good. Mobility stuff. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
that's a good goal, Corey. That's one that I've been
Well,
after
plus
asking.
we're short another member.
Yeah.
And
we
part of
need-
the goals of that was to be able to bring people in
Right.
and make them feel right away that they can jump in. So,
That was the first thing Bob. brought
yes.
up When he joined the board, he says,
So,
where's the onboarding?
so do we want to add that to the January meeting so we can try to knock that out? Because it looks like a lot of work's been done on it. Is it just finalizing? I'd have to look back on how much has been done on this thing, but
I don't think there's been much.
nothing. Oh,
Yeah, I think I discussed it with Bill the last time we met and there wasn't much from
okay.
our
No,
conversation.
I think we need to develop a regular process
Mhm.
because this board has always suffered from not enough people want to join the board. We've never had any alternates,
Mhm.
for example. And we have 3 openings for alternates and now we have at least 1 member. So we just need to get after it, and get people interested.
If we're at any stage to make suggestions on adding goals, I think that at some point, everybody on the board could come up with their own goals that we'd like to see the board do. What is the process of developing these goals and when do you want finalized feedback? I mean, ASAP probably, right? I mean, this is version 1 of a presentation that will be in January.
Right.
I think that, you know, if you sit down and if I sit down and Corey sits down and Bill sits down and all develop, what do we want this to do? And then present them to staff to say, here's what I think, or we collectively think the goals are, if you want to include all what will be probably 30 goals, or you can take that information and suggestions to categorize them into themes. I think that would be a helpful way as you're looking at making smart goals to really get a pulse of what Corey's goals for this board would be and what Bill's goals for this board would be. Because I think a goal of mine, right, I could get you into some details as to what my goals would be. And I think that you would agree on them. And I think that the board would agree on them. But there's just not time in the day to even listen to one another sometimes. So how do you want to solicit feedback for goal setting for 2024? And that's a question for both staff members.
Well, I would just say that by the end of next week, so we'll give a SMART goal for you all to have emailed to Juan and myself what you'd like to see. Is that fair? That gives you a week. Because again, we are on a timeline with the
Yeah,
holidays
and I
coming up, makes it
understand.
tough.
Sure.
I like the idea to see what everyone, thoughts, and sometimes the goals will match, so we'll be able to combine them.
In general
Yes.
themes too.
Yes. So I'm
Correct.
okay getting some feedback on that and then comparing with what we have. Some may match what we have.
Corey, Bill, what are your thoughts on those? Do you have any?
That kind of seems wide open, right? And so, yeah, what would be the process for us to sort through them? I guess I'm partly trying to just be supportive of what's been presented and
Yeah.
try to get behind some ideas that have been proposed. We got brand new staff member and I don't want to overwhelm them with all my goals, but I got lots.
Well, I think that's just it too, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
we-
The more you could send me what your goals, because then what I'll do is I'll be able to identify, like you said, like the SMART goals and what's measurable to put in place. And that would help out a lot. The earlier I can prepare for it, the better I can, bring it forward to you guys and see what you guys think at the end.
And maybe we say 5 max? Because we don't need 100,
Yeah.
What? What?
No,
Great.
about 5 each this time, Again, we do want to accomplish our goals. So we have to be reasonable on how many we have. Some may have to say we just can't do that for this year, but then we can maybe plan it for the following year. So some may match each other and we can say, hey, Corey had the same idea. We'll just combine them.
I do have a question for you. You made a comment saying that the city council wanted a better presentation or something along those lines. Can you allude to what, or can you get into what that meant?
They wanted SMART goals. So I'm glad that was
Oh, that
brought
is
up.
what that meant. Okay.
Yes, when he said that, I said, oh yeah, that was one of them.
Okay. Well, good.
Yes, I think, and the fact that we should be working on, a strategy of how to solve congestion, mobility in the city as a board, because the reason they brought in a board for park and mobility, I know there was other reasons initially, but because we have an outside contractor who was running it, but was to help with solving some problems. And I think that we need to do better at getting to that point where you're coming up with ideas, because they don't have time. I mean, they got a lot on their plate, so they develop these boards to focus on these critical areas and bring back to them the ideas. And then, of course, they're going to have their say because they're council and they have a right to do that. And I do believe they're very supportive. Every time I present anything with the Mobility and Parking Board, they said, Roy, did you check with the Mobility and Parking Board? They support this group. But we do have to really be, we need to go to them with that we're organized and that we have plans and what we want. And that's hopefully what we're going to do this in this new year. And I'm excited. I mean, tonight is going really well. I think we're getting a lot of good ideas. I think this is going to really help us move ahead and in presenting good ideas to the council, which they've been waiting for. I think they want some ideas. So
Can I ask a question? And this is just for us, of course, to think through the ideas and projects, right? I'd like to establish a goal. Let me rethink my thoughts. I'd like to establish a goal of ours to identify the process of presenting things to council. And that includes getting a good amount of research done. That includes talking to the residents that are affected directly by this, identifying all the stakeholders, right? And that includes X amount of participation within the meeting and X amount of participation from whomever, right? What is the process of us presenting a really good idea, right? Because we've presented good ideas before to what I perceive as deaf ears because nobody has the process to listen to them. It's not to say council didn't want those ideas. Of course they wanted those ideas. They've identified parking and mobility as one of the most important projects they need to be working on, right? So it's not that they didn't want to listen to our presentation on El Paso Boulevard. It's just that the processes were broken. And so I'd like to set that as a goal. Identify a process that works, that includes all stakeholders, surpassing this board, especially public feedback.
Well, I think with public feedback, and this board could gather that.
Right.
public Feedback.
It's just identifying
That-
what the process.
That has a lot of power with the council. Maybe not, not all councils, but that's the way you go about doing it. Is you mobilize, if you've got a great idea, and the board has a list of ideas, and we have an open house, and we make presentations about maybe our top three. We look at our goals and identify, okay, how do we rank these? And present that to the public. And I think, to me, number one goal is the darn congestion and how everything gets bogged down all over town. And people I talk to say, gee, I won't go to Manitou anymore because I'm just going to get caught in this mess. And I don't want to do that. And I'll just buy my stuff over in, I don't know, wherever. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so the public input is really key to influence council, I feel. And we need to mobilize it.
So, yeah, let me add to that. I'm trying to think one of the projects. So I can look at the pool feasibility study. So it was decided that we need to do something with the swimming pool. Para was involved with that initially, decided we're going to do a feasibility study. So we hired a contractor for that, consultant. They did that study, which included bringing in people, the stakeholders. They got all that together with a nice presentation and a booklet that staff was able to get for council. And then it was brought to council, presented by a para member and the consultant and the staff member. And now, of course, we're looking at what to do, and we're getting money to do some things to fix the pool. So the same plan has to be here. We do have to identify, we can't do everything at once. It costs too much money. We have to identify the priorities, and hopefully through this process, we're going to start developing a priority list and which ones, because towards the end of this walkable city, it talks about what's it called? The final winning the game or something on this thing. And I can't remember what the last title is. I'm totally wrong with the name, but basically it's bringing it all together, I think, at the end and saying, which is priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And then that's where we may have to get a consultant at that point, because if we're talking about doing roundabouts or whatever, we have to get engineers. I mean, now it's time to have action. But through that process is where we have to get the community involved and talk about it. And that's how they've done it. And Soda Springs was the same way, and a presentation given. So that's how other boards have done it. And that's how we have to do it if we want to make progress in something. So it's a great goal. I think we can reach it with what we're doing. And I think we do have to decide at some point when we have to bring someone in or not to help support us in your goal as well, like an expert that maybe we don't have. And we talked about how we can do that as well.
Well, if we identify a need and we can do some parsing ourselves but there's going to be technical stuff. And I
Yes.
think that's what you're going after.
Yeah.
With the consultant. Well, gee, they know how to do X, Y, Z task.
Yep.
And we need to get that. And as long as we have enough money to be able to hire them, and I looked at what's in our overall fund, it's over $2 million. And so that sort of blew me away.
The good news is that enterprise budget is doing well. And as you know, and part of my deputy report and the public services report, you know, with all the streets we're doing, I mean, we are using money now, but we also have money to start thinking about really some changes that could be positive. But we do have to identify those things. And when we're looking at fixing the pool, it's identified. When we look at doing Soda Springs Park, we identified that and agreed upon it. We still haven't really agreed on El Paso. We have some who are not necessarily wanting to have it as a mobility boulevard and others that do. At what level does that mean? You know, so we have to really come down to figure that out. And that way we say, hey, here's a project. Now we need experts to come in to help us. Let's see what the community thinks. And now we're ready. Let's present the council, see if they agree.
Do you envision the 2024 goals only being a list of projects that are actionable?
Yeah,
Because otherwise it would be long-term goals, and there's a difference. If it's going to be 2024 goals, we are looking at that stage of the game.
yeah, we can look at long-term, I think. I mean, this is my opinion. We can always look at what we can do down the road possibly as ideas, but we do have to have some that we can pick now if we want to make progress into the next year. And then which one is reasonable? Because again, the hard part with mobility and parking, most of these things are not going to be cheap. And so we really have to identify which is our biggest priority to give us the biggest change that can be beneficial to the community. So, so I think we can always look at down the road what we'd really like to see, and those can be put in locations. Hey, that's down the road some, but what can we do today? You know, maybe it is, and I'm just going to say this, not saying this is the case, so no one get on me, but maybe El Paso Boulevard becomes the mobility boulevard, and we find a way to do it to still accommodate the cars and the bikes better. But how do we do that? We haven't sat down and agreed even how to do that yet. So
Right.
that's what we got to get to.
But we can do pilots.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way to look at this whole thing. We'll pilot maybe a section of El Paso or whatever and see how it works. And hey, from actual on the ground experience, that's how you learn how to get the whole thing done.
True. And I think that was maybe part of the presentation, if I recall a little bit, they talked about doing a, you know, like a walkable street only for a weekend or trying some things out. And I think pilots are great because you can also look at Cannon. I can't remember the road between Cannon and Manitou Avenue, but there's a little section there, a road could maybe be shut off for a trial, things like that. So I'm all open to some pilot. And I think, matter of fact, Corey, you might even brought up that one, something about, can't remember if it was you or Carl, but maybe even Cannon itself get shut down for a day or two.
By the way, it's
Yeah.
pronounced Canyon.
Canyon, okay,
I'm sorry.
it's okay, no, correct me
couldn't
on that.
help it.
So what's the road between Canyon and,
It's.
okay,
I use it all the time.
yeah, I don't know what that road is anymore, but, okay, so
So
anyway.
So with that, I'll just say one quick thing is the pilot program, great. We like those, right? Sure. When I said I want to identify a very good structure of how to present things to council, where does the pilot program fit in? Do we do the pilot program first? Do we ask the council for acceptance to do the pilot program? Like, there are just things that we need to have down pat so we can hone in on those.
You're talking process now.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. We need to really lay out a process and we need to run it by council first.
Yeah.
And say, do you agree with this process that we're planning to put to work to accomplish this, to get some answers on this particular problem? And so, yeah.
And so that
I think we
direction,
need to involve council more in what we're doing because I. sometimes
hey,
get the
those are the
feeling-
words, Chairman.
Pardon?
I said, those are the words I'm looking for.
Yeah, and because council ultimately, has the final say. And sometimes I feel like, well, what are we doing here on this board? Because they don't seem to be listening to us. And I sort of say that to my mirror, and it's not an accusation or anything. It's just the normal flow of how business works. And having spent many years on council myself, I know it's easy to just make the decision and move on because there's too many things to deal with. And okay, yeah, and then you go back and talk to the board.
So I'll just say that probably what we can do is if we identify something we want to pilot, or something that is low hanging fruit that maybe can be implemented, and we have a passion for it and really want to push it.
So our list of 24 goals.
Yes, Yeah, correct, all of them. And then we identify that and you let me know. And then if we want to present it to council to get it going, then I will talk to the city administrator, see if we can get put on the schedule. And then this board and the staff will have to come up with PowerPoint and the idea to present to council. And then we'll figure out when we can do it and if it's okay and the mayor and the city administrator decides the agenda. So we could put on, so that's my offer then on the process to get something on there. When it comes to the other thing, that plan's already in place for me. I told the city administrator that we would look at the end of the summer to present all the kind of goals. But if we have something that pops in sooner and want to do a pilot, then, then that's what I need to hear from the group. And then I will see if we can get a date and we'll have to then work hard to make something to present. And then let's do it. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Perfect.
nice.
Other
Alright.
thoughts?
Anything else with the PowerPoint itself? We'll clean it up some. We may just even blind copy and send it out to the group to take a look at, since it's already been presented. I'll double check if there's any issues with that. As long as we blind copy, there won't be any meeting thing happen. We
Okay.
already presented it, so people have seen it. We can still bring it back in January as well, but maybe we get a little feedback in between as we're working on it to be able to present in January. So, all right.
Okay, let's move on with the agenda then. Have we finished with walkable city? I believe we have.
Yes.
And so the next report is staff report and Kevin isn't here tonight, but there was in the packet, there was some information on what he has seen or what his numbers are, so to speak. So I would hesitate to try to go through those, but they're on the packet. Read them.
Yeah, we generally don't go through them unless you have questions. And Juan maybe can answer them, or James if he needs to help.
Right. And
Are there any questions on that then?
Well, I just want to make the general comment. I know I've mentioned this before. I think the staff reports, we should look at what those are. I mean, they take time for staff to produce. Are they actionable and useful for this board in order for us to do the work that we do? I'm not certain that they are. One thing that I really want to see, and I'll remind again of the desire. I want to know what's going on with Pike Ride. I want to know the data. That's really easy data to get. What's happening with ridership, and the connected question is what is our plans for expansion of Pike Ride? I've heard that there's some discussions, but I'm not sure where those are. I'd like to see more Pike Ride hubs as soon as we can in town.
Okay, I agree. I don't know if that data with that we're given right now is necessary today like it was maybe years ago. It would save us time if we don't have to worry about it. The budget is available at all times, revenues, everyone can see that. I would think Pike Ride, also Mountain Metro ridership would be beneficial to this group. We could definitely do those. We get those monthly. And I don't know if Pike Ride's monthly, but Mountain Metro, we're getting them monthly now. So we can start adding those to the packets for review because I think those are important to see the numbers.
Yeah.
What other numbers may be important, you think? Would cars in the city, number of cars moving through the city matter?
Well, that really gets to the congestion.
It does.
And I am absolutely in favor of trying to understand better. We all know experientially by where the pinch points are and how you get out of town when the tourists appear and all of that. But to have that numerically defined, I think, to me, is important.
So let me see, I think through Streetlight, we can do now congestion, traffic reports in the city. and that
Still no
uses-
people, right? It's only cars and streetlight.
Don't know who, if you have a cell phone, it could be people. I don't know, the bike thing, I think we talked about that, that's a separate program.
Real expensive and it's not
Yeah,
part of the module. So I think
People, I'm not sure. Let me check the person, but I could get the car one. So we could add the car congestion numbers. And probably we can use Smarking. It probably would be good to show the occupancy levels that we're getting in our zones on parking itself. That might be useful too, to see if they're coming down and stuff like that. So anything else you think?
Well, what happens with the tram? What is that usage? And we could.
Once we get that running, we
Right.
can start developing data for that and present that as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
We'll add that and start to add what we can in January.
yeah, and then we can start to see what things we can learn from that data.
Yeah,
Um,
good idea.
I would like to get clarification of this. We talked about it some months ago. The Pike Ride program was initially set up as a pilot. It ran for a year. My understanding is that the pilot was approved and it is now a standard operating mode.
Correct.
That is right.
That's right.
And so therefore it's the authority of staff to expand it.
Correct.
Is that right?
And we have a Pike Ride that's supposed to go on Canyon, on Canyon.
Correct.
And then we are looking possibly near the cog. And then west, a little bit more west, maybe by Schmitzny lot. But currently we have paid for one more and that's going to be probably at Canyon. So that's where we located a place. And I think I'd have to, Juan, do you recall if, did we have to bring that back to council on the location? Or did we decide on the location? Do you recall that? I'd have to look into it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I would have to look
Okay.
into it.
So we'll look into that because I think there was a delay on where we were gonna put it. There was an idea on the sidewalk, but between trees, so it wouldn't interfere with ADA or anything. And then there
So
was
is that,
also,
that's a council decision and not a staff decision?
they decided, yes, they wanted some input on where to put it. So I don't know if that's changed, but that was the last thing I heard. The other area was possibly Soda Springs Park, maybe 2 parking spaces towards Manitou Avenue and Park. So that would be another location in that corner
Mhm.
close to Manitou Avenue. So we're gonna have to investigate where we're at with that.
Okay, well, maybe we could make that a standard part of the
Okay.
report. I think the more Pike Ride stations we get, that's gonna make a
Yep.
big difference on congestion. So.
And I would love to have this group's input on where to put them versus just us trying to decide. So we did look at some areas that we thought would be really good. But I would love input in the future. You know, do we want one at the cog or is the next one at Smithy lot, or is that better because of connectivity, you know,
Put it at the cog or even closer to my house.
or closer to your house? Yes. We'll have to watch that. All right.
I'm joking, but I do think the cog would be a great place for one.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe we bring that in the month, every month too, kind of if we're ready for another one,
Right.
kind of seeing, and also just give them an update on I think we can easily do. that.
Sure. And we've been updating the map as well. Like now you can go on our GIS technician, put a map together and they're on the city website. So now you can even click on, every point location where there's a bike rack and you can actually see the picture. And as we're adding more, we'll just keep adding it to their map as well.
Okay. Rory, do you have any?
Yeah, I'll give you a
Deputy City
couple.
Administrator?
I'll give you a couple of quick things here from
Okay.
a public works standpoint.
Yeah.
So we chip sealed 2.6 lane miles this year, the most we've ever done. Again, chip seal, just for knowledge, if people ask, you know, you can do overlay, you can do chip seal, you crack seal, full pavement, concrete. The chip seal gives us a life to the road further down. So basically the lifespan adds probably, you know, anywhere from 7 to 10 more years on a road. It keeps the moisture out. Plus a chip seal has a rougher texture. So our goal is to help with ice problems and the snow problems. Overlay smoother, but it also doesn't help with that. So we decided to go with chip seal. We do make that decision based on our road density test. So, and visual. So after winter, we'll do a visual check. We'll check with our density module that was been done 2 years ago, and it tells us the thickness. We did repave almost a full mile. And right now we're actually doing Winona, and we had to do that in concrete. And we made it,
Winona?
we did.
Oh, my
It
goodness.
is done. And it's has a rough texture and it has good drainage. And then we're gonna hit Chipeta. And then we're doing Cedar. I don't know if you've ever been on Cedar, but
Yeah.
it was crazy to go up there. That's being done. It has to be concrete as well. So we did pull in some experts, the best way to do those with the grades. So we're doing those. And then sidewalks, we did 532 linear feet, which are for ADA, curb and gutter as well. So we really are hitting a lot of areas trying to improve them for mobility and drivability. And then the only other thing, I know Juan brought up the bike map. We also are working on possible stair map. And I think, Bill, you suggested that. So we have a great GIS tech now, and he's already been working on it. So if someone wants to go online and look for the stairs, if they want to, besides the incline.
They'll find the incline, yeah.
They can, I'll do mini inclines all over the
There's
city.
other stairs that are a lot easier.
Yeah, and they're historical, so it's kind of cool.
They are.
So we're doing that as well.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna continue on trying to do the mapping and stuff for those.
Well, it fits right in
items.
with the walkability. thing.
It totally does. And we have to probably talk at some point about stairs and maintenance of stairs. So
Yeah.
I think this group also, we need to think about that. So, but that's all I have for the city.
Okay.
That's enough, I think.
Great. Any questions for Roy? Okay, let's go to Natalie. Do you have a report for us?
Okay. Yeah, I don't have much to mention that hasn't been mentioned already. I am excited about meeting in January with all of you. And I love that idea of figuring out that process piece of how we work on this. Because yeah, we're working on it, attacking it at all ways, all sides, all up, down, all around. So it'd be great to really figure out what pieces you would like to advise us on, so we know who to go to when. So I think that's great. Let's see. And again, I think when it comes to, council, when we look at reserves and how we want to talk about any sort of big picture projects, I know we're trying to finish all the projects that we have started, but if you guys have some creative ideas, it'd probably be March that we'd be talking about that. So a little time there. And that's all I've got. So yeah. We're
Any
glad you're
questions for
here.
Natalie?
I think it might be worth mentioning too. Well, I guess you do, like when you present that idea of if we have ideas for new members, new board members and or new advisory members. So it's good.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any old business?
I don't think so. It would be really old business, and I don't recall any really old business.
Okay. Board correspondence. Anybody want to talk about something?
I've got two little projects,
Go.
probably for city staff. So I've identified two little problems. One is that there's a stop sign on Washington as you come downhill. So to the right is the park and to the left is Sunwater. And the stop sign does not line up with the stop stripe on the road. Yeah. And so people don't know where to stop because is it the line in the ground or is it the stop sign? Which in my understanding, the stop sign is misplaced because it's after the crosswalk. So they would come into the crosswalk before they have to legally stop. If the stop sign was it was the legal stop point and because the stop bar is before the cross, but the sign is afterwards. There's something to kind of look at.
You said Washington and El Paso?
Correct. And then the other one, it was more of a question. I've seemed to be having more and more trouble dropping off my mail lately in front of across the street from the Cliff House. There's the mail drop box right there. And I seem to remember pulling in right and dropping my mail and leaving the vehicle, but now that's a parking spot. And I need to just maybe look at
Yeah,
it.
it's been crosshatched, but that mailbox is gonna be relocated.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we talked to the postmaster and he's working on getting back to us on where they're gonna relocate it. to.
Nice. Okay. Because that was just an awkward thing. I never had to remember like, because it made for such a thing. I ended up being selfish and stopping traffic to drop my mail versus finding a spot. And it was just a thing. So I figured I'd.
Yeah, we were having a lot of issues with cars just piling up in that corner, so we
Yeah.
just decided to have
Take it somewhere
relocated.
else. Cool.
Okay,
Awesome.
okay.
Thank you. Those two things, guys.
Can you keep it on?
Ladies
Canyon
and
Road?
gentlemen.
I'm not sure where they're relocating it to. I know,
It's just real convenient, you
right,
drive down the little street, take a left.
yeah. I'm sure it's close by. I think he was just gonna, it's around that
And that's
perimeter.
up to the post office.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we could suggest to them, doesn't hurt to say, hey, at the meeting, if you wanted to reach out, that they would like it, it's on Canon now. It's right on the left-hand side, right?
It's on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
It's a sort of a tight spot to
Yes.
get into. And then you gotta sort of back up and go around through the.
Okay.
there's-
Something. like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Could I have a
yeah, go ahead, Corey.
couple of things? One is maybe a little bit bigger picture, and I think it'll fold in when we get into our bikeability plan. I had the opportunity to ride my bike up Crystal Hills a week or so ago, and I noticed there's speed limit signs, 20 miles an hour, and residents only. And it's a huge, wide open road that encourages speeds a lot faster than 20 miles an hour. Is there, maybe the bike plan might tell us we do or don't want to have a bike lane there or some kind of safer infrastructure for bikes? Is there some kind of infrastructure that we could put on the road that would encourage the behavior we want rather than just a sign, but then this like giant open, really wide road?
Yeah, that's one of the areas that we had the traffic calming request over a year ago that currently we had requests to change the speed limit to 20. It looks like a highway. And that's part of the problem because it's a neighborhood. So
Right.
it's built poorly and it's designed poorly because it's a neighborhood. So that one way is to, Denver recently, which is something I'm going to be bringing to council next year, is they just went to all neighborhoods to be mandatory 20 miles per hour. So you got to start somewhere and people generally go about 5 miles over the speed limit anyway. We are doing some traffic studies now. We have counters out there to see if the speed limits are dropping because people again will be careful how fast they go over the speed limit. But it is designed for speed and that's a
Go 40
problem in a
easily.
neighborhood. And so I do think long term, we'll have to look at, number one is we probably can make bigger bike lanes there. The plan is to probably do a street diet next year, narrow the lanes and widen the bike area or the walk and bike, because there is no sidewalks in a lot of areas.
There's no sidewalk or bike lane at all.
So
So
we're
it's
gonna
just
make
like,
a bigger, so like El Paso, we're gonna street diet it and increase the bike lane and the walkability of
What
it.
street has that? Sorry, out of curiosity.
It's Crystal Hills Boulevard, right?
yeah, the one that goes
Yes.
under
The
24.
cantina?
the other
No.
side, going down the other.
Going down the big steep hill.
That's
So
a
that's
two-way,
the-
it's a two-way street, isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
is.
You know, I found on Ruxton, after you guys put in the brand new stripes.
Yes.
People are going slower because they don't want to cross. the
Yeah, we
line.
did a street diet there. We also put more crosswalks and we're not done yet. We have some more we're putting out there for across those streets. That's another thing we've been doing is a lot of striping, curb painting, so they know where yellow is and red. And so we're really hitting them, but
What if you ran two stripes down Crystal Hills Boulevard on that steep section?
well, when we do, I am trying to do some striping next year. So street diet, maybe we have to do that,
Well,
widen
I'm just giving you a thought.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll look at anything to try to help with this. It's a tough situation. At some point, there may be, have to be something else, like maybe a dedicated bike lane. I don't know. Maybe sidewalks need to be put in.
You could have a protected bike lane. There's enough
Yes.
space for it there.
Yes,
And
I
we could
agree.
we could do a pilot of that. So okay, so that's great. It's kind of on the radar. Thank you. And then the other one that I noticed was, you guys heard me talk about this for a real long time. I'm happy to say that the Mountain Metro stop at Fields Park has been moved so that typically the buses don't park and
Yes.
block the bike path. And there are some occasions when they still do park in the way, and it's when people are parking their cars a little too close to where the transit wants to pull in and they can't pull in. And so I wonder if we could paint yellow behind where the buses park to make it so that people can't park there and it still gives the buses a place to pull in.
Yeah.
Because the drivers are trying.
Yeah, there's plenty of parking on that side. So yeah, we could do that. That would be easy. And that, I agree. I think if we need to keep them a distance away from the bus parking anyway. So
Yeah, because the
let's look
buses
at-
aren't able to
we'll
pull
look
in.
At that tomorrow, Juan. Let's take a look and see
Okay.
what we can do. That's a
Great.
great.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any additional comments from anybody? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
You're looking at me, huh? I second the motion to adjourn.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 You lost your.
Yeah.
Silence is consent.
Thank you.
That's right.
everybody.
All right, thanks a lot. Great seeing you all again. Yeah, we'll send out information for January. We're gonna try to do something earlier.
So who's bringing the donuts in January?
Oh, okay. I will bring donuts.
Oh, he waited till we adjourned to say that.